Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Ask a Brit. We're getting really far through this series now, and of course this is the format in... I don't know why I did that voice. This is the format in which I have you find people ask me any question you like in the comments below using the hashtag AskABrit, and that way I can answer your question, hopefully, in the next volume. Now, apologies this week for the lack of videos. I put out a Halloween video with the intention of then following it up with more Halloween videos. That would have been overkill. Excuse the pun. So, kill reference in a Halloween. Never mind. But then my cat got sick on Halloween. Actually, now that I think about it, that's kind of an omen by the sounds of it. But he had a blocked urinary tract and was not able to pee, so we had to take him to the vets that night. He's been there kind of ever since. And he's had catheters put in. He's since been able to pee. He's now able to urinate without said catheters, so that's good, and he's hopefully coming home tomorrow. But the last week has been full of events. Firstly, I've myself not been that well. I haven't had a blocked urinary tract. I can still pee, so I've got that problem to come later in life, if every Tom Hanks film is anything to go by. But I've been sort of unwell as well, and I'm going to check myself into the vet on Tuesday. Last week I premiered my Kevin Spacey impersonation. What a week it's been. I'm going to have to retire said impersonation as well. But anyway, let's get on with the show. The first question today comes from LMD33, if that is indeed your real name. And LMD33 asks, "Hello Lawrence, in general, what line of work are you in?" Well, LMD33, between you and me and everybody who's watching, I am a technical writer for a consultancy firm here in Chicago. So, you know, it's work that lines up with my degree. I'm rather fortunate in that regard. I think when I was taking my degree, I never thought that a degree in English language and creative writing would actually take me places, but it kind of has, and that degree sort of has helped with this very channel. So yeah, I'm a lucky beaver in that regard. LMD33, I'm not a beaver, so not even euphemistically. I don't know what that would even mean. Rob Norris, why is the Liverpool accent called Scouse? Well, it's an interesting story actually, Rob. So it actually pertains to food, like all good things, and Scouse, or rather lobscouse, was the bigger name for it. It comes from a Scandinavian word, and it's a type of stew. And you know, people in the Liverpool area who ate and eat this scouse, this stew, became known as Scousers. And so the group of Liverpool people became Scousers, and because they spoke Liverpudlian, the accent became known as Scouse as well, and that's really the answer behind that one. So they're quite literally eating their words. No, they're not. So next question, Adam William. If I remember right, don't most cats in the UK do both outside and inside? In other words, they are housebound cats, and you will find cats that roam the streets. What's your opinion on your cats going outside, and have you heard of the Chicago feral cat colonies? To answer that last part, no, I've not. I'd be very interested to do so. Sounds terrifying. Maybe I would need injections before going down that route. In terms of outdoor cats, I would absolutely say that I see more outdoor cats in the UK than I do here. I think it does seem to be more of a practice here to keep them indoors. For instance, my cats are very much indoor cats. When I had to take Kafka to the vets the other day, it was like an adventure for him going outside, and he was, you know, looking around and all of this to see signs of help, probably, because we were putting him through such a horrible experience, which was already exacerbated by the fact that he couldn't piss, you know. And this is it. And for me, it's sort of a shocking notion to think of letting my cats outdoors, because I don't trust drivers, you know. And it's probably a very paranoid way of thinking. I think cats do have a radar, coming back to their human companions, you know, in my experience. But still, I have this very fatherly attachment, this protective attachment to my cats, which means that I just find it horribly difficult to let them out. Justine Marquez, what are your thoughts on the different parts of London, like Kingston upon Thames, Richmond upon Thames, etc.? Yeah, so good question. I think a lot of our views of London, we think of, you know, Big Ben, we think of the London Eye, we think of all the sort of tourist places, but of course there are numerous of places outside of there that don't sort of make that the iconography of London. I, for instance, lived in a place called Whitechapel, which is in the East End of London, and it was had a very communal spirit to it. I think that that's true of a lot of the sort of boroughs of London, and they're worth checking out. I would say, you know, if you're going there even to visit, go check them out. You know, there's a lot of history in those places, actually. Where I lived in Whitechapel, it was known for its belfry, which I believe has recently ceased business. But that belfry, in fact, produced bells for many, you know, establishments who would use bells around the world, including, I think, the United States. So there's more to London than Buckingham Palace, is what I'm telling you, Justine and everybody else. Next question, Firecracker3240, you're up next. As a huge fan of comic books and comic book films, I would love to know, do you have a favourite comic book movie, and do you watch any of the comic book-based television programmes? I grew up on Christopher Reeve's Superman, and I would think that number one, Superman the movie, is probably my favourite of all time. Looking back now, it does look rather dated special effects-wise, but, you know, if you tell a good story, who needs good special effects? Superman 2 is pretty good too. So it goes like this: Superman the movie, Superman 2, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2. This is a really uneclectic mix, I suppose. And Tim Burton's first Batman film. How about that? I think it's better than Christopher Nolan's Batman series. I'm going to get massacred in the comments.
Can't I do too, for the record.
There you go. That's why we married. And as for comic book television shows, I haven't seen too many of them. We saw Jessica Jones on Netflix. That's brilliant.
Excellent.
A great show. And I've seen a little bit of The Flash, but not enough to really comment on it at this time. I think I want to get into it, but I'm just so busy with my work, both at the consultancy firm and here on Ask a Brit and YouTube, that, you know, watching shows is sort of hard, if it's not called Doctor Who, to make time for that. But hopefully I will, you know, at some point, maybe when I retire and I'm having problems with my urinary tract, I can sit down and finally watch the Daredevil franchise and all of that. Michael Miller asks, have you ever been to Bristol? I'm from there. Also, I'm 15 and I so badly want to live in the US. What country do you prefer? Michael, I have to say, I have to be honest with you, I've never actually been to Bristol. I think I may have driven through it when I was a young wee lad, but I've never stopped off there. It's one of the sort of few major cities, along with Newcastle, in the UK that I just haven't, you know, really spent much time in. But I will get there one day. I promise you, Michael, I promise. And in terms of which country do I prefer out of the UK and the US, I love them equally. I've lived in both now for a sufficient number of years to be able to pass judgment, and you know, they both bring different things to my life, and they've both affected me in different ways. It would be wrong of me to say that I prefer one over the other. I prefer certain things from both countries to the other country, but there's definite benefit to living in both. So I do hope, Michael, that you get to fulfill that dream of yours to live here just as I did, because it is something of an experience. Next question comes from LA California Rocker Gal, who asks, what is your favorite American food that you discovered after moving here? So I think I've talked endlessly about my love for pecan pie, if I'm going to be talking about desserts, but there are some other things. I'll start with the thing I like the least, and that's Sloppy Joe. Even the vegetarian version, right? I like the taste of Sloppy Joe, but I don't like the texture. It gets all over my t-shirt. And I wear the best t-shirts, and we don't want to mess them up.
I've been telling him for years that he just needs to eat them open-faced, but he doesn't understand the concept.
I don't. Open-faced sandwiches is a monstrosity beyond words. But this isn't answering your question, which is, you know, favourite American foods. I don't know. I've got a few, I think. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. What do I like?
I mean, you said pecan pie.
Pecan pie, yes. Dessert. What about a savoury food? Sorry about that.
Peanut butter, obviously.
Peanut butter.
And cinnamon.
No cinnamon. I detest cinnamon, but peanut butter I have come round to. I've started to like that. I don't know, it's kind of hard because now that I'm a vegetarian, a lot of those other things that I discovered back in the day, like Arby's, guilty pleasure, I've kind of had to put on the back burner. Back in the day, I would have said an Arby's roast beef sandwich. Sorry, I was having a bit of a fit. But it's a tough one. I don't know. I'm going to have to think more about that and probably start eating more food. I don't want to eat more food. I've already put on 7 pounds, you know. But speaking of calories, Leah Pat has a kind of connected question here. Is English beer better than American beer? Do you know what, Leah? I don't know that it necessarily is. If you were to ask me to name an English beer, I would say Boddington's, Newcastle Brown Ale, and then I'd start to struggle. I know there are more, but America actually has a lot of fine beers, a lot of craft beers in each state. Indiana, where I used to live, was noted for its beers, craft beers, and I think America's kind of underrated for its beer production. Now, I'm no connoisseur, don't get me wrong. I'm just a Sir Lawrence. But a connoisseur of beer, you know, I am not. But I would say that if you were to ask me, which you are, my honest answer is I think I prefer American beer. Sorry, gonna get killed for that too. That and my preference for Tim Burton's Batman makes me want to get drunk in fear of the comment section. Next question comes from Bonar Joe. Bonar Joe says, hello. I'm a relatively recent subscriber to your channel and noticed that you're a Whovian. What gave that away? I can't think of any reason that you would think that. You know. So on that note, what was the first Doctor Who episode that you ever watched, and what did you think of the episode? Okay, I don't know if this was the first episode I ever watched because my memory starts to get quite thin going back to the age of 5. But by the age of 6, I watched that Sylvester McCoy episode where the main baddie was, you know, a rip-off of the Bertie Bassett character from the Sweets in the UK. I was terrified of that episode. It was my first sort of introduction to that idea that you hide behind the sofa while watching Doctor Who. And it terrified me, but I have since gone back and revisited parts of it, and it looks stupid. I don't know why I was ever scared of that character. But you know, as a child, you don't know any better. Nowadays, I just want to eat the set and the character of Bertie Bassett. That's not his real name. His real name is Candyman with a K. Clever, you know. I think probably to differentiate it from the Candyman song in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, wouldn't you say?
Obviously.
Probably not. So that was that. And then a follow-up question, or rather a connected question from Carla Canuck. Carla the Canuck. Sorry, Canuck, not your last name. But Carla the Canuck asks, who is your favourite Doctor from Doctor Who?
Is that not Canuck?
Canuck.
Carla the Canuck.
I don't know what that is.
You don't know what a Canuck is?
I believe we've established that.
You should look that up.
I will look it up. But Carla the Canuck asks, who is your favourite Doctor from Doctor Who? It is still David Tennant, you know, and it's going to take a lot to beat that. But I think in terms of the characterization, not so much the stories, I had beef with some of the storytelling in his tenure. But Peter Capaldi himself has been monstrously good. Not monstrous. He's not a monster. He's the Doctor. But very good in the role. And I think if you go back to the classic era, I would probably say Tom Baker. So hope that answers your question, Carla the Canuck. Right. Mary Hildreth, I'd like to know where to get real clotted cream. This has been, you know, on our agenda as well for the longest time. Similar to what is sold in the UK, and also what to do with it once I get it. That's a good question, Mary. We found it's quite hard to get clotted cream. I mean, you said you get frozen imports from those sort of UK, you know, distributors. But it comes to you as a congealed mess, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can get it, again, frozen occasionally, generally in, like, specialty British shops, but it doesn't last very long, which, of course, it doesn't anyway, and then it hardens, so I'm not sure it's the real deal, if I'm perfectly honest, and it's not the best thing ever. I mean, it certainly passes as clotted cream, but it's not what I would have gotten in the UK, for sure, and my best advice to you is just to try to make it yourself. It's actually very easy, if a little time consuming to make. And
Mary has another question regarding tea, in fact. She's interested in learning how to serve tea and what the different types of serving tea are. So you've got high tea, afternoon tea, and of course the evening meal tea, which is, just to speak on that last one, as a northerner, which a lot of you have disputed, by the way, because of the way I speak, you know, tea as in the meal is quite a northern thing. It's almost exclusively a northern thing, in fact. High tea is typically, I mean, I'm not a big expert on this, but it's something that's typically practiced by posh people. So, you know, not me. I'm not posh. Stop saying I'm posh. And then, I might be. Sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. It depends on the mood. Theatre ruined me. And then Mary also asks, also, is your theme music something that you wrote? Yes, it is. I'm asking because there is a podcast that uses it and I've only heard it on your channel. Mary, I need to know right now, you can answer in the comments below, who is using my theme tune? And there is a chance it could be me, because I actually did have a podcast that used this same theme tune. So if it was Halfway Planet, then it's mine. If it's someone else, I need to know so that I can, you know, start court proceedings immediately. So let me know in the comments below. No pressure on that, Mary. Kevin Thorpe has a question. Back home in the UK, all school children wear uniform. In all the American TV and films, I see that they don't. Why is that? So why is that, wife? Why don't American kids wear uniform?
I think historically there was a rift between the UK and the US. You may have heard of it. It's called the Revolutionary War. And since that time, we decided you come as you are in whatever it is that you're wearing.
It's this freedom of expression thing, is it?
Yeah,
Does it
I
go
think
back?
so.
Is it almost a First Amendment issue? It can't be.
Actually, yeah.
Really?
Historically, there have been First Amendment cases about what you can and can't wear to school.
That's unbelievable, but brilliant. All right, Jovan Emmerich, have you seen Kingsman and did you like it? No, and I loved it. Next question, Mark Oldgeezer. Today, yes, you're right, Mark. Today is the 5th of November, Guy Fawkes Night. Could you tell us 5 things about Bonfire Night that we didn't know as Americans? I'm not sure I can, because some people might know the answer to these. But, you know, obviously, Guy Fawkes Night is named after Guy Fawkes, who was a man who, as part of the gunpowder plot, tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament. And we celebrate that by burning him on a fire, effigies of him to this day. That's probably 2 things. And another thing is that its official name in the United States, not a lot of people know this, is V for Vendetta Day. So that's probably not true. I read that online somewhere. I read that on my own blog. I wrote that as a joke, so it's not true. Sparklers are really big on November 5th. So kids, just as they would on July 4th here, get the sparklers out. But the difference is between July 4th and November 5th is that it's really cold when you're on the beach, you know, and you're watching the fire go up. And so there's something really nice, I think, about that warmth that comes with not just the sparklers, but the burning effigy of a terrorist, warming you up and getting your blood going. So that's something that you can't replicate, and I can't fully describe to you with emotion. Although I might try. A 5th thing would be that, you know, in the UK, we as children will create our own Guy Fawkes. We'll create this, we'll just stuff pillowcases with feathers and stuffing. That's not stuffing, that would be weird and it'd go off and smell bad. Then again, it would replicate the smell of a dead human. And when we go out into the streets and we ask people to, you know, donate money, a penny for the guy is a phrase we would use, and people donate money. I'm not sure why we ask for money. Maybe it's for charity, or maybe we just
Mischief Night.
Keep it and spend it on sticker books.
Pretty sure it's related to Mischief Night.
Mischief Night. Could be, never heard of that. And that's it for this week's episode of Ask a Brit. Keep your questions coming in the comments below using the hashtag AskABrit. And remember, do follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and you can go to my website, lostinthepond.com. Until next week, have a fantastic Guy Fawkes night. That's it.
Let's go celebrate.
Oh, I'm out of breath. I need to go. I need a rest. I'm ill. Oh, we're still on air. Bye.